the most favorite designer label which we have seen in current times. So Yash, thank you so much for coming all the way from Mumbai for this session. And I'm going to jump into the conversation. So tell me, as a child while you were growing up, you must have seen your mother building the brand. So any memories you wish to share with us? I mean, how you got used to her creativity and how you saw the business side of hers?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Of course, a lot of memories. She started this business from her balcony pretty much with two sewing machines. And the earliest memories I have of her workplace was a small little office in actually a slum area in Mumbai, in a place called Kotwadi. And you had to walk through the slum and eventually get to the office at the back, which was actually the office was sharing space with the buffalo shed. So I remember I have a distinct memory of me sitting in a cabin and you could literally open the window and see buffaloes outside and hear the buffaloes, right? So that's kind of the humble beginning she's had. And then I've seen that, that progression from that office to eventually moving into a slightly better office in Andheri in MIDC and then moving to a second office in the same locality. And then finally to her dream space about 9 years ago in Navi Mumbai, which is where we work out of today. It's 90,000 square foot complex. It's a building that has been made in a very environmental way, to save energy, to save water. We recycle our waste, and it's been a dream office. And to see the journey from that buffalo shed to this building has been truly inspirational. And I think just seeing the growth of the business over the years, especially in my childhood years, is what really inspired me to join her and take up her footsteps.
Okay, wonderful. So from the time you joined, retail, of course, has seen a lot of transformation in the Indian market. So when you joined, and when we see now that, one is talking about the omni-channel presence, and the brand Anita Dongre has further emerged from being a Pret label to luxury to, of course, appealing to the masses with and global desi. How you saw the transformation happening and what role you played in the growth of the brand?
Yeah, so I think we're a very unique company. We've started brands in the early part of the company's life cycle in accessible fashion, right? So both and Global Desi have been accessible brands. When I say accessible, they're brands that are premium brands, but they're accessible in terms of price points, right? So and they've always focused on the woman consumer. And then we've, over the years, got into designer wear. So I think we're a very unique company. I say that because most fashion houses globally, start off doing designer wear. Right? They start at that top segment and then they will trickle down and start doing Pret and accessible lines. Whereas in our journey, it was completely the reverse. We started with accessible lines and then climbed the ladder to designer wear, which as per me is a much harder route to take. Because when you're known to be an accessible fashion house, to kind of create a perception for people to pay designer prices is a journey that is a lot more challenging. You got to work that much harder to create brand equity and change perception. But I think we managed to do that pretty seamlessly. So whether it was which started in '99, a few years after that we started Global Desi, and then Anita Dongre. Each brand is very distinct. Each brand has its own identity, and each brand has its own target consumer base. And for me, personally, I have been involved in the business now in an official capacity for the last 10 years. I started off honestly as an intern, just kind of learning the ropes, climbed up the corporate ladder like any other employee in our organization.
Sure.
And I played various roles. So in the beginning, I used to work in the marketing team. Then I tried my hand at business development. And finally, once I graduated from my master's in 2015, I took up the role of going international. And in 2017, I actually moved base to New York and set up our first flagship store outside of India in New York City. And I think we were the first design house to have a flagship in New York at that time. So this was in 2018, and then more recently, I set up our first store in Dubai, in Dubai Mall.
Okay.
Again, we were the first Indian designer brand to have a store in Dubai Mall. So I've really been focusing on the international markets, and now I was living in Dubai as well for 1.5 years, and I just moved back to India about 2 months ago. And now my focus is, of course, while I'm very much involved in the domestic business, I will continue my focus on growing the brands overseas. So we're looking at more stores in the Middle East, we're looking at more stores in the US, and that's really what I enjoy doing, and that's going to be personally one of my focus areas in the future.
Sure. So while growing the brand internationally on a global scale, were there any learnings which you got from the Indian market, and now when you have expanded it in the international markets, any cross learnings which you are doing for the brand in India as well?
So a lot of learnings. So I think, in essence, consumers are the same everywhere. I think they all want to buy a product that will add value to their closet, which will add value right to them. That makes them look good, feel confident. But yes, there are a lot of localization differences in each market. So, for example, when we entered the US, we were solving a very particular problem. We were catering to the Indian diaspora in the US because we felt that there's a huge vacuum there because it's a massive diaspora, right? They celebrate weddings with as much pomp and show as we do back in India. And there just wasn't any availability of good designer wear in the market. So either they were forced to buy from local mom and pop shops, which quality wasn't good. They were being taken for a ride with pricing, or they had to travel to India, right? And now with the new generation, we realize that they don't really want to do that 18, 20-hour flight to India just to buy their wedding trousseau, right? So we saw that gap and we addressed that gap. Differently in Dubai, our target actually is not the South Asians. In Dubai, we are targeting the Arab consumer.
Okay.
So again, a very different gap we saw there. And if you see our store in Dubai Mall, 70% of our client base is Arab ethnicity, from the larger GCC area. So I think while the brand essence stays the same, the brand philosophy stays the same, the design stays the same, we do localize our merchandising depending on what problem we are solving in that market and what gap we are trying to fill in that particular market.
Okay.
And I think that's really very important when you're trying to expand globally. If you try and take the same formula everywhere, you're not necessarily going to be successful.
Sure. And since we're talking at the Retail and D2C Summit, I want to know, how big has been your journey in terms of the e-commerce foray? Is direct to consumer one of the channels which you also, plan to foray into?
Sorry, was that e-commerce?
Yes.
Yeah, so e-commerce has always been, technology is something that we've always tried and, make it as a centerpiece in our strategy. But we are a legacy company. We're a 25-year-old company. So bringing in the change is always harder than you would expect, right? Because people are used to working in a certain way, and you need to try and change their mindset. So when specifically talking about e-commerce, I think we really invested heavily in e-commerce during the pandemic. So I think the pandemic was a time when our stores were closed, and and fortunately we were one of the few companies actually that had a full-fledged e-commerce site when the pandemic hit. I know a lot of retailers tried to build websites when the pandemic hit, right? So we already had a website on Magento, but it honestly wasn't the best. And we used those few years to really strengthen our e-commerce platform. So we actually were one of the first companies in India to completely migrate to the Salesforce ecosystem. So for those of you who are familiar with Salesforce, we use all of their platforms, Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Service Cloud. So that's what makes us unique. But we're one of the few companies who kind of use them end to end. And we did that whole migration in 2021, and 2022 is really when we went live with the entire platform. And I think what that platform has done for us is made us truly omni-channel. It's given us the capability to kind of track our consumer offline, online. They're able to seamlessly, shop online, pick up in the store. We have our e-commerce website powered in the stores through tablets, so they can seamlessly make a purchase while they're in the store in case they don't find a size. So I think that's been one of the significant investments we've made in the last few years. And but having said that, the e-commerce, at least for the fashion sector, is challenging in India because it's still very discount driven, right? So that mindset and that behavior has to change because companies like us are willing to invest heavily in the back end infrastructure. But if we don't see those full price bills coming through, then those costs are not really justified, right? So I think changing the consumer behavior to say, okay, if you're shopping online, you shouldn't only be looking for a bargain. And I think that a lot of that responsibility lies with the brands because the brands have to make sure they're replicating the same experience a consumer is getting in their stores online. And I think if we can do that, when I say that, offering the same product assortment, offering, the same price points, offering the same range. It's not like you have a separate range for your online client and a separate range for an offline client, right? So I think if you can do those things, then customers, I feel, will be comfortable shopping full price. And we're seeing that change from, say, when we went live with the website in 2022 to today. Our full price sell-throughs have gone up by at least, I would say, 20-25%. So I think more brands follow suit. Brands should stop kind of doing too much of mid-season discounting. I think sticking to your two end of season sales is something that if most people follow, I think consumer habits will change as well. So the consumer spoiled for choice because every day the brand is on some sort of offer or the other, right? So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, but I'm pretty positive that in the next year or so, in the coming years, that behavior and that mindset will definitely change. And I think that's when it will encourage more brands to invest more heavily in e-commerce infrastructure.
Definitely. Sure. I also want to touch upon, of course, your mother is very, very creative in her pursuit. So, is there a match with creativity and business, which both mother and son bring into the table?
Yeah, so I think in our business, creativity is in every part of the business, right? So even me, if I say I only focus on the business operations, I'll be lying because you have to always be thinking at some creative level when you're running a fashion company, right? But at the same time, yes, we do have our roles very clearly chalked out. So she obviously spends most of her time in the design and creativity part of the business. She doesn't really like to get into operations at all. Operations is something I enjoy. So I obviously spend more of my time in retail operations and business expansion. But what we do together is the strategy. So strategy is something where both she and I are very much involved, and that's something we both enjoy doing, and that's something we both work together on. Otherwise, yes, we do have our roles very clearly mapped out.
Sure. But anything which she taught you about, her side of the business, and you taught her about yours?
So I keep telling her she has a very hands-on approach, which is in a way is good, but sometimes she tries to do too much. And I keep telling her that, you need to delegate every now and then. And I'm someone who does a lot more delegation. So I think those are the things we kind of teach each other. And I keep telling her at your level, you can't be doing every single little thing because she's a stickler for detail, right? So she just feels that if she does it, she'll do it better than somebody else. But I keep saying that, you have to trust your people and you need to feel comfortable to delegate. So those are the things we kind of help each other with. Yeah.
Sure. So after running the brand for 10 years and that to a 25-year-old brand, what's your vision? A lot of people look at it as the Ralph Lauren business model being built in India. So do you think this is the way forward?
Firstly, that's a huge compliment because we look up to the Ralph Lauren business greatly. I think it's a fantastic business what they've built. I think for us, what we've learned over the years, because we've gone through the whole cycle, right? We had private equity investment come in about 9 years ago. We've done that whole crazy expansion in the last few years. I think what we've come to realize is that we really want to grow organically and sustainably. I don't think we want to chase those crazy top line numbers. We did all that. We opening 100 stores in a year. And I don't really think that worked for us because I think you end up then compromising on a lot of your brand values. You end up compromising on product quality. You end up compromising on brand positioning. And I feel that's something that we've learned the hard way, and I think now we really want to run a more tight ship, but run a very profitable organization. So I think the future is going to be growing slowly, growing sustainably, and of course for us the focus is very much going to be the international market. So we only have 2 stores today and only one brand. Anita Dongre is the brand that we've taken overseas, but we really want to take our other brands internationally as well. I think there's a lot of scope for Global Desi to go international. So that's something that's in the pipeline. So I think focusing on international expansion is going to be one of our centerpieces of our strategy.
Okay, sure. Well, Yash and I can continue the conversation for another hour or so, but I would like to give an opportunity to our audience to ask the questions they have for Yash. Please raise your hand.
Someone at the back.
Can we pass on the mic there? Towards the back to the lady.
Hi Yash, thanks for taking the time. I'm Anubhuti. I'm building a fashion platform that can help different brands sell to more customers. I think from perspective of the house of Anita Dongre and the different brands that they have, different customers that they have, specifically to the affluent customers where there are specific brands within the umbrella that they're catering to. What do you think are some very powerful platform capabilities that could help enrich the customer's experience, or that probably say you may not have the time or may not really want to invest in personally, but there could be additional capabilities coming out just as a partnership that could help the brand grow.
So just to get this right, is it a marketplace that you're building?
Yes.
Okay. So I think just on top of my head, one of the biggest problems I have with the marketplaces today are the lack of curation, right? Because you have marketplaces that obviously are trying to scale very quickly, and under that pressure, they are signing on a lot of brands, right? So as a customer, when you're browsing these marketplaces, of course, while you're spoiled for choice, you're also very confused,
Right.
because obviously when you're looking for something particular, you have something in your mind, and then it just gets a whole lot confusing when you're on these marketplaces with that 1,000+ brands listed. So I think if you can do a very tight curation, I don't know if you're focusing on a certain
Segment of customers.
segment of fashion,
Yes.
or segment of
Yes.
customers.
Yes.
But yeah, I think the curation can play a real important role, and I think customers will appreciate a really well curated marketplace. You may have fewer brands, but the experience will be a lot better.
Got it. Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.